Hi, this is Asha Saxena for Intelligent Luxury. Welcome to the show.
And I'm Julie Faupel, Asha's co-host. Welcome. Welcome right back.
You have to stop making me laugh.
Because I'm funny, Asha.
I know.
That's like that is what I bring to this whole thing.
Oh my God, okay, I know.
You're the brains of the operation, and I am the funny sister.
I know, you really are.
Yeah. When you and I met,
Yes.
we were immediately friends. The more we got to know each other, the more our thinking was so aligned in terms of this being such a pivotal time in both data and technology and everything that you work in, and luxury and kind of lifestyle and everything that is my discipline. We're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're in this beautiful facility, and the fact that you came in for an event being hosted by Realm, real estate and technology has not necessarily been something that has gone hand in hand historically, but it's such an act of friendship, and I think what you're seeing is there's so much curiosity around what you're doing and how it is innovating aspects of our lives that we never even anticipated.
Absolutely. But I also have to tell you, the reason I'm doing it because I love you so much. And I think that's what the world needs now. We have AI, we have machines, we have programs, and we have so much data. But what really matters at the end is the relationship. It's the human connection. I'm super excited about this podcast. The audience will enjoy so much because we are going to have fun while doing it.
It's always fun with you, Asha.
Thank you, everyone. And please continue watching because we're going to have guests who come from all around the world and going to talk about luxury in real estate.
We have a lot to look forward to.
Looking forward to it. Hi, this is Asha Saxena for Intelligent Luxury. Another episode to talk about intelligence, luxury, and real estate. With me today, we have Paige Charnick from Long Beach, California. And I'm really excited for this conversation because it's going to be a little bit different. Paige, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get started, I want to learn a little bit about what do you specialize in? A little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So I'm a boutique independent broker owner based in Long Beach, California, and I have an expertise in probate and trust sales, also deferred maintenance luxury properties that are transferring from boomers to the next generation right now.
What an interesting place to be. I mean, there is so much news and surveys about this wealth transfer and the amount of wealth transfer that's going to happen. Tell me a little bit more about what do you bring, or what do people in your place would bring to this market?
So I think what's interesting right now is that there are more than 10,000 people turning 65 every single day. And I think for that age demographic, all of the changes with technology are really hard for them. And they need an advisor that can walk them through all of those changes to both utilize them and rely on the things that are familiar to them. So for that demographic in particular, I think a greater level of advisement is being required and asked for of our industry and our profession. But there's also $100 trillion of wealth transferring that we don't want just going into the abyss, and that includes real estate and businesses and all of the assets that go along with that. So the opportunity is large, both in a technology space and for a personal touch.
You know what I like what you said is that because there's such a vast amount of wealth that is going to be transferred, but there's a lot of boomers who are still not technology savvy. So how do you become an advisor to make sure you guide them to use the technology, but continue being intelligent about how they're going to think about this transfer?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So I think that ultimately it's a blend. You want the client or the person you're advising to feel in their comfort zone. And I think that goes back to age-old advising of asking questions. You have to ask the questions. Are they comfortable with X, Y, and Z? So a lot of my clients are moving into assisted living. And so they actually do want, in the new place that they get to, they want the technology there to support them in their transition. And that can be everything from, like those digital calendars and reminders and things that come up. But when it comes to selling their home, they need someone to help guide them through the process of, what do I do with all the stuff? What
Right.
about the personal property? Who is solving that problem? And maybe the homeowner cannot use technology to solve all of those problems depending on their both demographic and their preferences. But the agent or their advisor can, depending upon the guidance and the questions they ask. So what's most important, I think, really, is that you have an advisor willing to ask the right questions. It's almost like equating it to an AI prompt, but you need to ask the right questions of your client to yield the proper results.
I think what you're touching upon, quite a few points here, which are, I think, very important. One, that yes, you might have clients who are not using AI themselves, but how do you stand out in the crowd to be tech savvy, to be able to understand how to use AI to your advantage, to help your customer understand and make the right decision? So you can use AI as a superpower to be able
Absolutely.
to think through with you, ask the right questions, and then go talk to your clients and ask them the right questions.
Absolutely. And I think where that comes into play for a real estate advisor trying to grow their business in that space is they can use AI to figure out what those people's problems are, but then finding the solution to those problems might include AI and might not.
Yeah.
It just depends. But you need to use the technology to determine what are their problems. And usually those problems, for me in my day-to-day business, that results in personal property.
Yeah.
Everyone's overwhelmed with their actual physical stuff. I can't wait for the robots to come for that. I'm like, when I'm going to be the first one to have a robot clearing a house, like I
Yes,
can't wait for that.
exactly.
And I know that's sooner than we think, but at the same time, my client might not want to see that happen.
Yes.
That might be something where we say, okay, you might not want to witness this change happen with your house. Right. And I may have gone a little astray there, but
No.
yeah.
No, I think you bring up a really good point, because what you're talking about is having the perfect blend of machine and human. We say that, yes, AI can help you be intelligent, but where to apply that intelligence is based upon the human.
Exactly.
And as a human, are you using the technology and all these resources effectively to stand out?
Exactly.
Because in the age of intelligence is abundance. But how you use that intelligence to serve your customer with care, with personalized touch, with the intelligence to really know what they actually want, because they could be saying something, but want something else, to really invest in your
Absolutely.
customer, to be able to serve them effectively.
Well, and I think what that comes down to ultimately is where the new becomes old, becomes new again, is I really like to think of it as having the hard conversations for the better outcome.
Right.
And that hard conversation might be with AI, but it might also be with your client and any combination thereof. It's still a hard conversation, but you move that into the better outcome for the client.
It's like saying you're going to need a toolkit. But in that toolkit, you want to have few of the tools that are AI, few of the tools that are humans, few of the tools which is mix of both. But really knowing that my toolkit should be full, and I should know when to take out which piece to use
Exactly.
for what. And I think that intelligence is really critical. But there's another study, McKinsey did a study, and they said in the luxury market, not just real estate, luxury market in general, when a buyer goes in to buy a product, 56% of the consumers have said they were dissatisfied with the service, because they feel that when we are buying luxury, I want to get certain amount of service. And I think what you're talking about is the service piece. It's like, do you really show that you care when you're dealing with your customers?
Well, I think you have to be able to demonstrate that to your client. But you bring up something else that just is happening in my business today.
Okay.
I think that some communication on a luxury buyer, prospective luxury buyer, they're actually using AI chatbots to communicate with the agent. So I no longer personally feel I am communicating with some of my clients. I think I'm communicating with their AI. How is that response coming through? How is it coming through to me? How is it coming through to the other agent if I'm relaying that information to the other side? And then also, I have literally just witnessed this in the last 48 hours in my own communication with clients, is I said to a client recently, okay, well, your next open house is scheduled for next weekend. And like, I could see the response time happening, and the AI was thinking it through, and they were like, yes, I recall that you mentioned that. I was like, that is not my client. But they had in their bank of information the things I had said to them. So it brings up a number of points of liability, especially for myself as a boutique broker, and I'm the broker owner, so I always think about liability. I think we're one of the first brokerages that has implemented an AI policy to the client saying this is how AI is being implemented in our business, and you acknowledge that that's how it's being used in our business. And I think a lot of even the bigger brokerages are not doing that, and I think that has to be disclosed to the client. So I think there's a lot of what does a luxury buyer want? Well, they want it to be, they want the things they've always wanted, but now they want it at a higher level. So they want it to be seamless. They want it to be easy.
Yes.
And actually, some of them want it to be fun also.
Of course.
And I think you can't discount that part. And right now, the technology actually is still fun.
Yes.
Because it's new and being utilized in different ways. So I think that's really what a luxury buyer is looking for, in addition to their good deal and at a good rate and at a good price and having all the amenities that they want. I could go on about that for days.
No, of course. You know, I like what you're saying is that you're actually talking about not just the care and the personal touch, but you're talking about how can you make it fun with technology? Mm-hmm. How can you make sure that you bring something to the table that's more than just, you know, the
deal.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we, as the consumers, as the service providers, have to really think about: are we using it effectively for our consumer? Mm-hmm. And I love you spoke about liability. I think liability is something which not a lot of people are talking about. Mm-hmm. I recently joined a board of an AI firm which is all about governance, visibility, observability, and valuation of the model. Mm-hmm. And why that is important is because the models can go haywire. They can give they can start imagining things. But as humans, if you're not checking, then we are going to provide the wrong information to our customers. So even though technology is great, I think having some guardrails around it is really, really critical. People talk about deepfake. You know, you can have now voices that can imitate somebody else. So how do you make sure that you're careful as you're using such a powerful technology? It's all about understanding the good and the bad and balancing it.
I think I always come from a place of protecting the client, and in my trust and estate work, I come from protecting the estate or the probate and ultimately the beneficiaries who are inheriting. Mm-hmm. So I always come from a place of protection. And then I think with AI growing and what's needed, I think, for the consumer is both an understanding of the risk and the benefit, and that's very hard to get both across to a client. Every client has a bias, so they either like AI or they dislike AI, and having them understand both the risk and the benefit when they have that bias is really the hard point to get across to any client. And then just in a negotiation, I think this is the obvious, but if you ask AI, any of them, and you say, well, this is a price I'm offering on a property given these conditions, it's going to validate the price that you want to offer.
Yes.
Then if you don't have somebody actually giving you the true market data, then you're going to believe your own
hypothesis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then when you go to negotiate, right? I work in a community right now where some of the homes have a boat slip and some of the homes don't have a boat slip. And if you look at that and you don't account for the boat slip, well, then you're looking at pricing that actually is not comparing like for like. And I think that consumers don't have that data because some of those things are marked in hidden private boxes in our MLSs and things like that, where you can't always see how much value is being attributed to the boat slip versus the house. And this is, important to a luxury property. But your client is only feeding AI the data it has, not the data that the agent or the advisor also has. So how good is your data? It's like good data in, bad data out.
Right.
So you can only be as good as the data, and where is it coming from, who's providing it, and what bias does it have?
You bring up a great point here again, is that if you are just trusting or basing your decision on what AI is giving you, you could really go completely in the wrong direction.
Yes.
So really thinking about, I mean, of course, the guardrails are important, not trusting or not trusting is important. What are you really trusting? And I think that's where a good, reliable advisor, the real estate advisor, becomes important, because what they're doing is really telling you, giving you solid background, not just the AI what output, but really giving you historical background, institutional knowledge that you bring to the table for the customer.
Well, and the client bias, I think, informs those guardrails, because if the client bias is, I don't trust AI, well, AI might help your listing sell, right? Like, we might want to utilize it in all of its glory to get this home sold, but if your client is mistrusting of it, they're actually doing themselves a disservice in getting the home sold. But if the client leans into AI and says, I believe everything it tells me, well, they might have an inflated value, or they might just not understand who their actual buyer avatar demographic of their true buyer of their property. They may miss the mark on who's really buying their property. So I think the client, like you mentioned guardrails, but I think actually the client bias informs what the guardrails should be, or the direction you should be going with the guardrails.
Exactly, it really truly does. And I think that's why this is such an important piece. And we talk about what AI can bring to the table, the efficiencies, the expansion, the enhancement. But what we don't talk about enough is the risk, the guardrails, the governance, the observability, the valuation of these models that they're using to inform us the information. Paige, thank you so much for coming to the show. I really think this is such a critical conversation that you bring up. I mean, we as an AI strategist, as somebody who spent 30 years in the industry, written books, I teach at Columbia, I am a pro AI. I am so enthusiastic about what possibilities AI brings to the table. But to really make sure that we don't get fooled by AI. Technology is great. Like, I feel science has really helped humanity. Technology has helped us evolve. And I think AI is going to continue helping us evolve. So this conversation is so critical, because we talk about not only how it can help, but also how it can harm us. Being cautious, being aware of what the risks are, how you think about your bias, how do you make sure you put the guardrails effectively. What is your AI policy as you work with your clients and in your organization? All these conversations are critical. So continue evolving, exploring, and I hope that our audience goes on in this journey of learning about technology, but also learning about your customer. Be inquisitive and curious about the questions you're asking. And I love what Paige you said, is making sure that you have a policy within your organization. Think about the bias and continue making sure you serve your customer, because that is your edge, being human. Thank you so much for joining Intelligent Luxury. I'll see you next time.